my name is Samantha, and I am born and raised in South Florida. And I am elated to share my birth story and my journey with all of you. So I'm currently 31, but my first birth was when I was 18 years old. And ever since I was a kid, from the start, I wanted to have a baby. And I knew I wanted to do it unmedicated. It was like an innate urge, something I just felt very natural about. And so, unfortunately, I felt victim to the business of being born. I was another brick in the wall. I did no preparations for that labor and delivery. My birth experience when I was 18 was dramatically different from my birth experience when I was 31. I unfortunately I had the epidural and I ended up actually having an episiotomy at age 18. And the dilemma there was I was so numb from the epidural that I didn't know if I was pushing or not. I literally had no sensation, which is crazy to think. So they did give me an episiotomy, and nonetheless, my son was born, but I did walk away feeling so disappointed, not only in myself in a way for not reaching a goal that I wanted to just go unmedicated. Millions of women have done it before. Why can't I do this? I'm young. That was my intention. Uh, I was disappointed in my care team, did not take the time to really vet who I was working with for that experience.
Was there a sense that they didn't take you seriously because you were young?
Absolutely. I was young, wild, and I think they definitely did not take me seriously, which is unfortunate, especially maybe not having quite the education I have now around birth and advocacy.
Did they see a partner at your side? How did you come across to them as far as your situation there?
Definitely came across as a single mother. My partner at the time was not overly supportive. So I was a single mother essentially from the start. Yeah, yeah. And I was actually raised by a single father. So to me, it was kind of something I was used to in a way. But that definitely played a hand in how I was perceived by healthcare individuals. So, yes, so I got married, and my amazing husband, Cody, who is a dream come true, the most supportive man in the world. We actually ended up doing some genetic testing at my OBGYN's office after we got married because we wanted to have children. And it came back that we were both carriers of a fatal kidney disease, polycystic kidney disease. And with that, we have a 1 in 4 chance of our offspring having the disease. So we knew from the start about this that we could either A, conceive naturally and take a gamble, take a risk and see if the baby was, the 1 in 4 or the 3 of 4. And unfortunately, we did conceive naturally, but our little angel baby did have the disease. So it resulted in a baby loss, which was very sad to say the least, which catapulted us into IVF, the other option. So, which is amazing. Through IVF, they can screen the embryos. If an embryo has the disease or if they're a carrier, or if they aren't a carrier, they didn't get the gene at all. So that is what led us to doing IVF for genetic reasons, not for infertility purposes. So, with that weight on my chest, I knew this was my moment to vindicate my goal of having an unmedicated birth because, one, going through what we did, this was such a privilege and a blessing to be pregnant once we actually got pregnant. I knew that I probably wasn't going to be pregnant again after this. We wanted our one and done. So this was it. This was my moment to shine. And that truly started my journey over the 9 months of being pregnant, researching and learning about unmedicated birth and labor and delivery.
How many years apart was it between your son and this pregnancy?
12 years.
Long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Very long time. And everything is so different now than it was in 2013. That's for sure.
Samantha, before you go further
Yeah.
with this birth story, can you just give us a little sense of how you felt? What was it like for you 12, did you say 12 or 13 years later? 12,
12 years later.
12 years later. What was it like for you when you found out you were pregnant at this time and stage of your life with a partner that you were in love with versus how you felt when you were 18 and you wanted so badly to be a mother. And I can relate to that feeling so well because I had to like hold on for dear life not to get pregnant too soon in my in my life. I made it to 26.
Yeah.
But what was just like when you first found out you were pregnant, how did it feel differently to you?
It was like a shock wave. Truly, truly such a different emotion and feeling, not only just because of IVF, but to be in a dramatically different place in my life financially, spiritually, emotionally. It was a true blessing, something I will, when I'm 80 years old, go back to in my dreams, finding out that I was pregnant. It was serendipity. It was amazing.
And did you feel concerned at all about the age gap between your kids?
Possibly. However, those were fleeting thoughts because in my family, we truly lead with love. And my son is just truly such a lover. I knew he was going to embrace his baby sibling to the fullest, and the loss was hard for him too. He knew about the baby and all that. So he wanted a little brother or sister desperately. So I spent a solid 9 months studying hypnobirthing, listening to your podcast, reading books, watching YouTube videos, truly anything and everything I could do to educate myself about unmedicated birth and a physiological birth. I did. I mean, I spent hours, we're talking, preparing myself because what I gathered was this isn't so much a physical game, this is a mental game to the fullest. Of course, contractions and surges are painful, but you can do anything for a minute, anything for a minute. So I ended up being induced at 39 weeks and 3 days. And the sole reason for an induction was IVF. I did not exactly want to be induced, of course. I was trying to induce my labor naturally with all of the ways that I could. However, ultimately, we did decide to proceed with an induction due to just some statistics around an IVF pregnancy, stillbirth rates, and whatnot.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because medical, I feel like the medical model of birth really has a strong hold on IVF mothers, not just because there are some increased risks. And some of those are just related to the fact that many IVF mothers are older. And when we're older, there are slight increased risks in general, not on an individual level, but in general for older conceptions, older pregnancies.
Mhm.
But because a woman and her partner have invested so much in an IVF pregnancy, it is so easy for them to be persuaded into an induction because it just feels like it's this one opportunity. Tell us about that. Tell us what your experience was like. Tell us the statistics that you were told and how you made that decision.
Yes. So I did heavily research the statistics that my doctor, my OBGYN, and the maternal fetal medicine doctor had shared with me. And you hit the nail on the head. Most people who do IVF either have infertility struggles or they are older and there's underlying issues there. For me, wasn't the case. Personally, Cody and I, my partner, we just didn't want to take the risk. And honestly, at the end of the day, I knew I was going to do this unmedicated, whether I was induced or not. And I just felt because there were so much at stake, like the stakes were very high, let's just do the induction. I'm just a few days away from my due date, anyways. I had my bloody show. I mean, I was essentially there. I was 3 centimeters dilated, 85% effaced. So I do
That
think,
was, sorry, you were 3 centimeters dilated and 80% effaced before you had any induction intervention. So yeah,
yes,
you were
ma'am.
already on the edge.
I was there. That's why I think, yeah, they gave me, I was induced, but my body was certainly very receptive to the induction process, which I don't think all women who are induced can say that. So we did have that on our side, but I'd be lying if I said the fear around IVF pregnancies and inductions, the what ifs, of course, they play in your mind, especially after you've gone through so much. You're like, let's pursue this option, just play it safe. That was the thought around that. If it weren't
And
for IVF, I would not have been induced.
a very important consideration in induction is how the mother feels about it, because we're so often talking about, avoid induction, avoid induction, avoid induction, because mothers are pressured into induction when they don't want it, they don't feel ready, but they're scared into it. You were coming from a place of, you probably intuitively knew you were ready, even before you had that cervical exam or whatever to find out where you were, because you wanted it. You felt it was resonating with you. You wanted it, you felt good about it, you felt in charge of your decision, and you felt you could handle it. That's coming from a very different place than a woman who is induced because she's been threatened into it and she's afraid and she succumbs to it and her body's not ready.
I definitely did feel ready and I listened to my body. I'm so intuitive, even not pregnant, you know? So in that moment, channeling my divine feminine energy, I was ready. We were ready to go.
So what happened? How did the induction go?
It went amazing. We arrived to the hospital. We were put in the most beautiful room overlooking oak trees. Like there were so many trees everywhere. My husband and I are major nature lovers, so it just felt like it was meant to be. They started my Pitocin low and slow, and throughout from that point on, when I started the induction, which I want to say was around 1 in the afternoon, until I gave birth around midnight. I only had one cervical check, which is amazing because I had known I was 3 centimeters dilated to begin from my previous OBGYN appointment. And then they didn't check me until, right before transition. So it was the actual induction itself worked well for me. I just took it as it was what was meant to be, and I continued forward. I just labored as if it was the most natural thing in the world. I was on
And
my feet the entire time. I didn't sit down, I didn't lay down. Um, Counter pressure was everything to me, that's for sure. And that's how we started. Once the surges started picking up, my husband and our amazing doula, Samara, would do the counter pressure on my back. And that was probably my favorite tool of my toolkit, which I had quite a few. I also utilized a TENS unit, recommend for early labor, not so much active. Um, I had a birthing comb. I had my music playlist that I curated. Um, yeah.
Samantha,
So
was the medication the only medication you received in your induction Pitocin?
yes, ma'am. Pitocin was the only medication I received. There was no need for any cervical ripening, and I certainly wasn't about to have any sort of painkiller or anything. And frankly, at that point, I didn't even feel like that would have been warranted or needed. I mean, the pain level was so nominal up until really transition for me, at least.
So isn't that done all by IV? And how is it that you were able to move around so freely? Did they give you some kind of portable thing or did you just stay near the bed? It's so great that you were on your feet the whole time. You never hear that about induction.
Yeah, yeah. Everything was portable. I had wireless monitoring, so it was all done through Bluetooth. And then the actual IV, yes, it was through IV, but I just walked around with it. My partner or my doula helped me walk around with it. Yeah, we just meandered around the room.
That's a really important aspect of this for our listeners to understand is that when you are having an IV and when you have Pitocin, you can't really do it with an epidural so well, although they do have, low epidurals where you can have a little bit of mobility, the walking epidural, or you can get sometimes a little bit of mobility. But um, with Pitocin and electronic fetal monitoring that's done wirelessly, it's called telemetry. You can be out of bed. And it's so part of the reason that you didn't need an epidural was because you were out of bed and you were out of your bed, you were on your feet, you were moving, you were allowing your body and your baby to work together and do all the things that, happen in a physiologic birth.
And that was what set me free in a way because I am such a mover and shaker in my nature. The thought of being bedridden actually gave me more anxiety than the thought of, I wanted to be mobile. I wanted to be able to move. When my favorite song came on, I wanted to dance, and I did. I moved my body, and that's, again, it just felt like I wanted to follow my intuition and my nature, what my God-given body was made and designed to do. And I wanted to follow that. And I did. Highly recommend moving around as much as you can. It's a saving grace. I labored on the bed, leaned over, letting gravity do its thing. My husband and doula were behind me with the counter pressure. Probably did that for a solid 2 hours. I did labor with my shoes on. So if you have, any issues with your knees or your feet, definitely wear your sneakers. My doula was like, wow, most women are barefoot.
Yeah, wait, I don't think I have ever seen a woman give birth with her shoes on.
When I went to push, shoes were off.
Okay.
But
Was there a point in labor where you felt like, get these shoes off my feet? Like I can't have this anything on me. Or did somebody tell you to take them off or what happened? Because that's very
eventually,
unusual.
yeah, definitely. I have really small feet, and throughout the end of my pregnancy, my feet hurt so bad. I was still going for my walks, and I had to have my shoes on constantly. So for me, it just worked. And they eventually came off because I got in the birthing tub. And then at that point, we were getting down to business, and it was time to push. So there was no need for them to come back on. But yeah, I labored with my shoes on, and my water broke and went right into my shoes, which that was another intention of mine. I felt very strongly about not having my water broken. It was an induction, and with an induction, sometimes the application of an induction is to speed labor along, and I was not about to have that. No one was going to break my water. And by the grace of God, it broke on its own after the 2 hours of laboring over the bed like that. So things really picked up from that point. What a cool sensation to feel your water break. It was just the neatest thing.
Yeah, not everybody feels it. Some women don't notice, especially if they're in the tub, but other women, you can feel the splash down your leg, or you can feel the sensation inside your body, or you can hear a popping sound.
Yeah, it was so cool. Love it. 10 out of 10 recommend. So at that point, honestly, labor kept on going. My beautiful doula set up our room. We had galaxy lights. The lights were dim. We had the playlist going. And you guys know the Twilight Saga by Stephanie Meyer. I'm a huge nerd in that way. I love Twilight, and it was actually playing on TV. We had it muted, but it was playing. It was just one of those things. So at that point, I actually visited the dilation station, which is the toilet. I definitely utilized that seat, moved around on that a bit and relaxed, and did that probably for 30 minutes. And then it was time to get into the tub, which was probably my second favorite item of my toolkit, the birthing tub.
Well,
Wow.
I have a quick question for you. What clothing were you wearing when your sneakers were on? Were you in a hospital gown with sneakers on, or were you in your own clothing with sneakers on?
I bought my own hospital gown, so I
Good.
did have,
Okay.
so I had a different gown on, but yeah, no bra, nothing, just free
Your
balling.
own clothes, your own shoes
Yes,
on
ma'am.
your own terms. Okay.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that matters a lot. I think that it gets overlooked a lot. That when you wear your own clothes, you do somehow keep your own agency. It is strange to wear someone else's clothes. Even if you're at a friend's house and you're chilly and they give you a sweater, you're very aware that you're not wearing your own clothes. And I do think that there's more value and power in that than women realize. You have the right to wear whatever you want in the hospital. You by no means have to put on a hospital gown.
Absolutely. And that was also part of the premise of, okay, we decided to give birth in a hospital. Well, I still have my birth preferences, and you don't have to do X, Y, and Z just because the hospital tells you you need to, or they give you this gown that 1,000 other women have worn. Well, you don't have to wear that gown.
And
You
mainly sick people have worn, right? I mean, hospital gowns are designed for people to be in bed ill. That's why they open the way they do, so that you can have easy access. It's like mentally in our mind, that's what we associate it with. I think it's number one on the list of our things to do when choosing how to make your hospital birth feel like home is our episode or our Patreon event or something. And I think that's number one on the list.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, honestly, even looking at that gown, I don't know about you ladies, but almost gives me anxiety. Like if they're ugly, they're uncomfortable.
They're
No, not
gaping open in the back.
Yeah, I mean, come on, who wants that? Not me. Was not going to help me achieve my goal in this. That's for sure.
So you got in the tub.
I got in the tub and I actually did not even put on a swimsuit top. I just got in the tub entirely nude and the tub was incredible. Talk about relief. The surges had definitely picked up at that point. This is entering transition. I could just tell because something I had learned throughout all my research was when you start to feel like you can't do this anymore, that's how you know you're getting close. You're getting close to meeting your baby, you're transitioning. And I did have a fleeting moment of, wow, I don't know how much longer I could do this, but I never once said I can't do this. I never once said that, not out loud or to myself. I just knew I was getting close. So being in that warm water, and my husband, he had the hose, he was putting warm water on my back, and we were keeping with the counter pressure. It was the most incredible sensation. I truly, truly succumbed to giving birth, and I was in labor land and I surrendered entirely in that moment. I also practiced up breathing. So I had my breathing techniques throughout this whole thing as well, which majorly helped. 4 seconds in, 8 seconds out, 3 sets of that. And I would literally count on my fingers. And having that ritual, if you will, also carried me through.
Did you do that breathing in between contractions or during contractions? And did it feel natural and sustainable during contractions?
I did the breathing techniques during the contractions, and it did feel sustainable and natural to me until we got to pushing. So I continued on with the counting. It was almost like a little pocket of peace, like a coping mechanism for me. I would literally count on my fingers, and it was a way to channel the sensation.
Yeah, I mean, that is something we can do. And the way I talk to my clients about that is it gives your conscious mind something to focus on because your body is birthing unconsciously. And when we get the conscious mind involved, it tends to not support the process. So when we're breathing deeply, we're visualizing that all works in the unconscious. We're visualizing our body relaxing, opening. But if we have something conscious, like counting, it's like our conscious mind is over here and it's allowing everything else to happen over there.
That's a beautiful way to put that. And that's so accurate to my experience. Yeah, that's
I just want to make one comment also about the water. You said that when you got in the water, it just like took you to another place in your mind, in your body, and gave you that strength and stamina to be like, oh, yeah, I did feel like I couldn't do this. And now here I am, I can do this. Um, there's a lot of controversy out there about water birth lately. And one of the big things that is being said about water birth is that women shouldn't feel that relief in labor, that they should that water is actually like a substitute for pain relief, and that it's taking away something from their physiologic experience of birth.
hmm,
And I just wanted to emphasize that with what you said because I just so vehemently disagree with that. Like it's so absurd to
that
think
is
that a woman shouldn't be comforted by something in labor. It's like exactly what her physiology needs to relax, to get through
exactly.
the hardest part.
I agree. That's actually low key, high key insane. If we were thousands of years ago in the woods in the nature, you mean to tell me as a woman I wouldn't get in the river? I absolutely would be getting in the river.
It's no different to me than putting a cold washcloth over a woman's forehead or putting some counter pressure on her back. I mean, why are we trying to discourage women from having an experience in labor that helps relax their body?
I agree. Yeah, I have not heard that. That's wild. Definitely recommend a birthing tub.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Had I had a home birth, I would have loved to have given birth in the tub. In the hospital, you can't actually deliver in the tub, but I got the second best. I felt it was fair for my experience and carried me through.
See, we
Yeah,
were just
So,
talking about
so
this, Trisha. We were just talking about this. How
yeah,
often they ask women to get out before the baby
exactly.
comes out. And if they don't
So
have a compelling like, policy or way to do it, they often will tell her something. They'll give her a rationale. Oh, we need you to get out now.
So
Mhm.
what happened? At what moment did they tell you to get out? Where were you? What was happening when they told you to get out?
So my doula and I knew in advance that my midwife would not be delivering in the tub. So my doula, who was just so clutch, she was like, okay, it's time to get out because I started to feel the sensation of pushing. At that point, the only relief, it was no longer my breath, it was no longer the water. The only relief from the surge that I felt would be to slightly push. And at that point, once I shared that with my doula, she was like, okay, it's time to get out. So, no problem. We transitioned out of the tub, got dry, and visited the dilation station one more time. And this is where the pushing really started. And each contraction, I would stand up and put my arms around my doula, and we would sway. We would do a dance together. She was literally holding up my body. I was leaning on her, and we would sway. And that just goes back with the movement and being on your feet. It was the only relief, that in tandem with letting a push come out. Really, I started making those guttural, instinctual noises at this point. Um, so we did that for a few more minutes. And then my doula, again, she truly carried me through. She said, okay, let's go ahead and go to where we're going to birth the baby. Uh, I laid down on the bed. They brought me the peanut ball, had it in between my legs. That's where I felt the ring of fire for the very first time in my life. And what a distinct and unique sensation. On one hand, you have the contractions, which hurt. And I say that in quotation marks because they're intense. I don't like to say they hurt, I like to say they're intense. And then the ring of fire happens, completely different sensation. You have two different feelings. Um, so she started to crown in that moment.
How did you feel in that moment? What was the Ring of Fire experience like for you?
True to its name, but not quite as painful as I would have thought. It really wasn't all that awful. To me, I was just so excited because I was right there. I knew at that point, like, oh, I'm about to have my baby girl, my little rainbow baby.
Did you touch your baby's head or anything at that time? Did you feel?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
So I would
that
like to know
helps.
at this point, when I got on the bed getting ready to actually birth her, I did utilize another tool in my toolkit, which was nitrous oxide. I fiddled with it very early on in active labor. However, it kind of gave me nausea. So I diverted away from it for the duration of my labor. But at this point, I did revisit, and I will say it was another little pocket of peace that I needed in that moment, just, consciously put that there. So I did fiddle with nitrous. Uh, yeah, that was another positive to the toolkit, I'd say. And at that point, my amazing doula came through again. She said, we're putting this bed up and we're getting the squat bar out. And this was something that her and I had discussed, but we'd had no concrete plan of this. We just went with the flow. They propped up the squat bar. I was so comfortable in this position. It was amazing. Just being upright. Again, I'm not trying to lay on my back. At that point, my midwife quite literally did not intervene the entire time. She was standing in the corner. Hi, Claire. She was standing in the corner watching me. The nurse said to her, aren't you going to do something? She said, absolutely not. She's doing exactly what she needs to be doing to have this baby. So at that point, I got into the squat position, and my midwife said, reach down, feel your baby. Another unexpected event. I did not plan that. Reach down, touch my baby's head. Wow. What an experience. And at that point, I did 3 solid pushes. And my midwife says to me, okay, reach down, you're going to catch your baby. Uh, I was not expecting that. I was a little nervous, apprehensive, but I dove right in, reached down, caught my baby, and brought her to my chest. And like that, no more pain, no more intensity, nothing. Giving birth to my son, my first birth, he came out. It was so traumatic. I almost had an emergency C-section. I was just crying, like ugly crying, because I was so scared, emotional, freaked out from what I just went through. I was just told I had an episiotomy done. And I said to my doula, this time I want to smile and I want to laugh. And I did. The moment she came out, I had the biggest smile. I was laughing. I was boastful. I was joyful. And there's a photo of me with the biggest smile on my face. So that was another goal that I set forth for myself that I achieved. What a beautiful moment that was. And it was truly, truly amazing.
Yeah, I think people really either underestimate the power of touching their baby as their baby is coming out, or just are not offered the opportunity to experience it. And when you are on your back in bed, it's more difficult. I mean, you can still do it, but you got to really kind of hunch over and reach. But in an upright position or in a tub or hands and knees, it's a lot easier. And it is such a powerful moment in one of the most intense moments in birth. You mix that with this also incredibly powerful moment, but on the complete opposite side. It's like the relief, it's like the connection, it's like the excitement. And on the other side, you have the intensity, the discomfort that I don't know if I can do this. And you just like blend those two things right in that moment.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know, I feel like it's transformative for those last few moments of birth and getting your baby out, oftentimes without tearing because of it.
Yeah, I agree. The world stopped. Quite literally, the world felt like it stopped spinning in that moment, touching her head, and then in the next push, catching her, literally grabbing my baby, feeling her come out in the most beautiful position ever in the squat, just bringing her to my chest. Talk about transformative for sure.
In comparing your two birth stories, it's clear you had far better providers the second time around. And I think that's going to be the easy conclusion that listeners will grab from this. But you and we know that motherhood changes us dramatically because we, for the first time in our lives, no matter how young you are, when you become a mother, you were only 18, um, you are immediately responsible for the most important thing in the world. You're immediately someone else's advocate. So, do you have any appreciation for the different woman you were giving birth the second time around? And how would you describe how your own personality changed between age 18 and 31?
Absolutely. When I was 18, I was a little rosebud in the garden, and now being 31, feeling like I'm a blossomed rose in its height of its life, possibly even. Not only just through my own experiences in life, having to be a single mother at such a young age, working, going to school, finding the love of my life, all of the life experiences. But physically, I go to the gym, I'm very healthy. So I feel like I did a complete 180, as growth should be in life. Uh, Definitely a different woman that I was when I was 18 versus now.
And how did that new version of you at age 31 change you as a client of the hospital that you were birthing in?
Well, first of all, the education factor. Just actually being educated to know that I have rights. I don't have to just go with what this random nurse is telling me, or I don't have to do what this doctor is telling me. So that's a major point to that. I did not have that when I was 18. I just, out of sight, out of mind. Ignorance is bliss in a way. Yeah.
Also, when you were 18, you said you were raised by a single father.
Yes.
And did you have any friends who were having babies? Did you have any family members, aunts, or anybody around you who was also having babies at the time? Or how would you have had the support system at that time in your life to really know how to educate yourself and navigate a physiologic birth or your birth rights? Or I think when we're young and especially if we don't have that, we just sort of assume that we'll go there and it'll be fine. We'll just figure it out along the way. It's kind of how 18-year-olds operate
Yeah,
much of the
quite
time.
literally. Very much so. That was me. I did not actually have anyone around me having babies. So it was a new journey I was embarking on in its totality. So that definitely played a role. Now, of course, being 31, you've seen many babies. You have a lot of family, or I have a lot of family and a lot of friends. And that definitely had a hand in it as well.
I think we fail to recall, most of us who didn't have our first babies at a very young age or as teenagers as you did, we fail to recall that at that age, all of us, like for any of us, everyone in your life is an authority when you're 18. Everyone is an authority. Your boss at work, if you work, every teacher you have, every relative you have is an authority over you. And when you're a mother, no matter how young you become a mother, you become an authority.
Mhm. I agree. When you just said this about authority, it brought me right back to laying in that bed when I was 18. And I was actually by myself for a period of my labor. And I looked at my nurse and I said, "Oh, this really hurts. Can I hold your hand? Like, can I hold your hand, please, and squeeze your hand?" She told me no.
Oh my
She did
God.
not give me her hand. She told me no and said, I've been a nurse for 35 years. If I let every woman squeeze my hand wouldn't work anymore.
Oh my God. That's
Talk about
unbelievable.
rejection. That haunts me. That was brutal.
I believe that. I mean, in your most vulnerable moment, you reached out to somebody whose job it is. It's her job to
Yep.
support you. And she said no.
And an
Yeah.
18-year-old, she said it to an 18-year-old.
Yeah, she
It's
did.
heartless.
Truly. Yeah. So I definitely, at 18, everyone is an authority figure. And I just took it. I was like, oh, okay. I guess this nurse isn't going to hold my hand. Okay. I'll just be here alone.
Which of your two births taught you the most? Was it the one where everything went sideways because you weren't prepared? Did you ultimately learn the most from that one? Or was it the second one, would you say?
I think the second one, because I was just truly unaware when I was 18 about all of this, so many points of this conversation. I left that experience feeling traumatized and disappointed, but I think it took me time to reflect back on and learn from that. Whereas with this birth, I learned so much through my 9 months of research and having a dream team behind me. So yeah, definitely learned more the second go around.
What's the ultimate reason you wanted to share your story today?
Oh, so my intention with sharing my story is that I wanted to empower women out there who are listening to know that if you do have to have an induction, or if you want to have an induction, and in the back of your mind, you want to pursue an unmedicated physiological birth, that just because you have an induction does not necessarily mean that you cannot achieve that goal. There's a lot of fear on both sides in the birthing industry. And I just want to be an inspiration to someone who maybe isn't feeling so confident. I want them to know that if you set a goal for yourself and you are mentally prepared and you do the best you can do this 100%. You can have your dream birth. You can give birth unmedicated like the millions of women have done. The God-given gift to give birth. And that was my true intention with wanting to share my story on your podcast. I really do hope I can inspire someone out there in the ways that I was inspired by listening to other stories.